you dirty potters. How are you today? Just ignore these. I was glazing with acid or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's nasty.
Welcome to another episode of Glaze Review, a playlist where I take glazes and I test them for you, so that way you don't have to be disappointed when you see the color on the bottle and you pour it into this thing. It doesn't come out the color it says on the bottle. Don't worry, I do that for you. In today's episode, we are testing out Clayscapes Cream from the Clayscapes company. So far that we've been testing Clayscapes glazes, we've only tested Clinton Pottery Red. I will link that episode down below for you. But these glazes have been coming out as bangers. Meow. Also keep in mind, just because you're with me, you get a discount code if you want this glaze in the previous episode or any of the other powdered glazes that they saw on their website at Clayscapes. I will put the discount code on screen, and I will also leave that down in the description below. Because I'm lazy, and if I was you, I would just copy and paste it at checkout, because typing, right? All done mixing the glaze. That took us maybe about 4 minutes or so. I like the way they package their glazes because, firstly, I get so much more glaze than buying a pint for like maybe a third of the price realistically, depending on what glaze you buy. And I also get to control the amount of water in here. Which, by the way, on their website with every glaze, they do have a recommended amount of specific gravity or for your hydrometer, but like, I still get the last say. I still get to control how much water I put in here. And that's something as a glaze maker that I value. Now that we have the glaze all mixed up, I think we have a pretty good base test for what we're going to be doing. Firstly, I'm going to be testing this raw by itself on a white clay body. This is a B mix with lots of texture on it. I just decided to slap some texture on there. This should work great as a first white base test. I'm also going to be doing it on a redstone clay body, something to see how the iron reacts in the clay body with the glaze itself. Usually, we get two different results out of this, and I'm willing to see the base tests here. These two here are already a little bit contaminated with my Gara's Red, which looks like this, so I kind of decided to do an in and out glaze test with this, where I glaze the base with cream and put Gara's Red over it, and then we'll do the second one, but we'll put Gara's Red and put the cream over it, just to see the difference in layering. These two bowls here are pure porcelain nesting bowls. They come as a set, but I want to see how they're going to react with cream and my green glaze. My Laogai green glaze looks a bit like this. I already put the recipe on Glazy, but I want to see how this cream works with the Laogai green, because it rhymes, and that's how I test my glazes. If it rhymes, it's good. That's not true, but I don't have another reason as to why I would do that. I just kind of want to see what happens, so let's get glazing. That right there is what I love about dipping glazes. Everything's nice, everything's consistent. You just saw me dip like 5 things. Took me literally less than 2 minutes. Like, technically speaking, if I just wanted a coat of this glaze, these are done. 2 minutes. Ain't no brushing going around here. On a serious note, I do not care if you brush or dip your glazes at all. I just like saving time and like an even consistent product, so. Now that we have everything glazed, let's take a look at what we're putting inside of the kiln. This one's going to be interesting because it has a lot of texture on it, so we can treat this as both our white and texturized test style. I want to see if cream from Clayscapes reacts to any type of movement in the clay body, especially that of texture. This is essentially the same thing, but with brown clay. I'm interested to see how the red iron oxide in this clay body reacts with cream itself, to see if there's any difference in the glaze and the reaction with the iron in the red clay body. A lot of times there are, but you never know unless you test the base, and that's what we're doing. These two bowls here are cream from Clayscapes with my Laogai green recipe on top of them. Generally speaking, Laogai green comes out like this a good 95% of the time. These two here are the over-under technique I was talking about, where I put one glaze over, one glaze under, and I do the opposition on the opposite side. So this one here is cream underneath my Gara red. Gara looks like this, and this one is Gara red with cream over it. Really interested to see the difference in between these two. Okay, now that everything's glazed, let's put them in the kiln. Okay, now that everything's out of the kiln, let's take a look. This first one here is our textured white stoneware clay body. You can see the glaze really lives up to its name. It really is a type of semi-opaque white cream glaze. It even covers up a lot of the texture that we see here. It's a good thing they didn't let me in the company, because you know how my brain works. I would have named this a little something different. Maybe after some Navy recruits or something like that. I'm gonna save this for a reglaze test and probably glaze it with something else. Let's check out our red test style though. So there's two things that I'm noticing so far. Number one, if you put enough texture on something, you can kind of see where it breaks along the lines of the texture on a white clay body. And this gets even more enhanced on a brown clay body. You can see on the little rivets right here on the texture that I made that you can see the brown clay body kind of poking through just right there a little bit. The second thing that I noticed is that if you put this on a redstone clay body or anything with a type of iron in it, you can see where the little types of iron are starting to poke out of the glaze itself. And I like this. It's a beautiful texture, honestly. If anyone else on the channel is familiar with the glaze Shino in reduction especially, this kind of looks like a Shino that just never went orange or brown. It looks like a pure white, very, very, very small amount of iron because it's on a red clay body Shino to me. And I'm into it, especially these little specks right here. I'm into it right here. I actually have some other test styles that I have already glazed off camera without you. I know. I'm sorry, I always be glazing stuff without you, but there's some real bangers over here, and it only solidifies the point that the dirtier the clay body, or at least the more iron the clay body has in it, the better this glaze comes out. Let's take a look at our over and under glazes. So we have the first one here with cream on it and my Gara's red, and then we have this one over here with Gara's red first and then cream over it, and they came out extremely different from each other. First, let's look at cream underneath Gara's red. In all honesty, it didn't do too much. It kind of seems like it muted out my Gara's red, honestly. For those of you who don't know what the glaze looks like, my Gara's red usually comes out like this, but putting it over this cream, it kind of seems like it just took away all the red and turned it into a type of melty brown. Now, the opposite of this, being Gara's red underneath cream, came out a banger. I love it so much. I'm excited that I found this combination because I have the recipe in my Garro's Red, of course, I made it myself, but I also have tons of Clayscape cream glaze left because it only costs like 20 bucks to get 5 pounds of it. So I have this combo all day long now. Every now and then I come across a combination of standard glazes that I use in my gambit and I have to write it down because if I don't write it down, I will forget it. So this is one of the ones that I'm gonna have to write down. Maybe I should record it or something. Like right now. Let's check out our Laogai green and cream test style now. You know, honestly, I'm not too excited about these. My regular Laogai green recipe all by itself on a white clay body comes out like this, and I was looking for something a bit more exciting than this. The one thing that I can say about this cream glaze from Clayscapes is that I think it would make a fantastic liner glaze. As I'm going through and looking at and reviewing the pots, I slowly realized I could just put this inside of something and I shouldn't have to mix this with anything. I could buy a stock of this as a liner glaze for the high majority of my pots. If you look really close on the inside right here, you can see little specks of brown and red because this is a stoneware clay body. I like these specks more than I like the glaze itself up here. Like if I had a glaze that only made these specks, I would enjoy that. But unfortunately, this did not come out more amazing than my actual Laogai green recipe all by itself. Granted, I know plenty of you like green. I might just be glaze spoiled, to be real. Some of you might be like, oh my god, I love it so much, because that's how you sound in my head. I'm sure that's not how all of you sound, but realistically, one of you has to sound like that. Out of the 80,000 of you that there are, one of you's gotta sound like that. I glazed a couple of things off screen as well. Okay, that's a lie. I glazed a lot of things off screen without you, if I'm being honest. But out of them, I wanted to illustrate why I'm kind of in love with this glaze as far as a liner glaze goes. And let's start off with this one right here. I personally think this would make a fantastic liner glaze because I've been into making amalgamations and blue clay bodies and brown clay bodies and swirly clay bodies just like this. And this now gives me an excuse to make sure this clay body stays raw while I make sure the inside is completely food safe with a liner glaze. This is the perfect glaze for this situation right here. Okay, I don't really have to do this, but because I know you're looking, let's do the slow-mo here too. I know a lot of you dirty potters out there love whenever I marbleize clay bodies like this. And usually whenever I get a recycled clay body, I will mix it in with a white and a brown and some type of gray and make sure that I put a liner glaze in it. But I also don't want to cover up this natural beauty right here. So I think this does not take away from the natural beauty of a marbleized clay body. Otherwise I gotta put a green in there or I gotta put a blue in there, and then it kind of seems like I'm taking the attention away from the pot itself. I'd much rather just have this white food safe part that touches your lips and the rest of it just be a standalone beautiful clay body. As I started to experiment with this glaze, I started thinking about putting them on dirtier and dirtier clay bodies. Things that are meant to have kind of specks, freckles, little bits of iron in them. And so that's where we kind of came to this right here. I don't really know if you can see it from your point of view. I can definitely see it, but as I was saying earlier, the dirtier, quote-unquote dirtier the clay body is, or the more iron or the more little tiny bits of something specks in it that there are, the more this glaze really shines as far as an organic facet. So you can really see these little dots right here. They're just coming out straight through the glaze because of the iron in this clay body. Granted, this is a recycled clay body, so there's a bunch of stuff in here, and you can really see this cream glaze take the form on of whatever leftovers there was inside that clay body. And for someone like me, who right now anyway is into very natural and organic work, this is a godsend. The main and probably only unfortunate thing I found out about this glaze is that if you have a mixed or marbleized clay body and you put it over the marbleization itself, it it kind of covers it. It really does cover it. You can barely see the marbleization that's underneath the glaze right here. It really, really covers it up, unfortunately. Granted, still makes a fantastic liner glaze, and I made this teacup with this glaze in mind to test it out. I also, however, made this teacup over here, which I am extremely happy with. I am tremendously happy about this, and I mean this. I might actually keep this myself, but I've kept too many things to not put them on my website and sell them at this point. So, like, there's only so many things I can come home to my wife, like, look, I kept another one because it's special and unique. Like, no, she's not. I'm sorry. I don't know why I sound like a 1950s paperboy bringing home pottery. But, yes, dear. I brought home another cup. I'm sorry, dear. I'll be a better husband. I like how even in the 1950s, I'm still a simp. Like, sorry, dear. I'll be better. You can also really see confirmation in what I was talking about earlier, in how the dirtier or the more iron saturated the clay body gets, the more of these little specks that you get in the final product with the glaze over it. You can see these little specks right here. You can see them here, and I did use a clay called Dragon Fruit. It's meant to have these little specks in there. Granted, they're not iron, but they still serve the same purpose. You can see that truth inside the clay body as well. Wherever there is a white clay body, you can really see those little specks come through, and that echoes through the cream glaze from Clayscapes right here. You can totally see that there's little tiny specks of organic material straight in that glaze. It's no longer a white standard glaze, even though I essentially used it as a liner glaze. Don't keep it. 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 I kind of want to keep it.
I'm being held against my will. My address is 123 help.
Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today in the Clayscapes cream review for the Glaze Review channel. You know, I've kind of been trying to get you guys to just experiment with making your own glazes. I know it's not my job to get you to make your own glazes, but I did a video for Ceramicon teaching you how to make your own glazes, and I've been putting glaze recipes out there, and a lot of you are essentially just, if I'm being honest, you guys are attracted to like the same 17 glazes in bottled form. Because, you know, everybody has their favorites, but some realistically are just better than others. And I like that Clayscapes is giving us these glazes because they're a good middle point in between not knowing how to put the chemicals together and make your own glaze, and really just running some water through a filter and calling it a day. This is as close as you're going to get to making your own glazes without actually having to go out and buy the chemicals yourself. If you want to get your hands on some of this glaze yourself, the links and the discount code will be down below for Clayscapes. Big shout out to Clayscapes for sponsoring this episode, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Thank you for your patronage.